Now, it's become quite apparent to me that a lot of FPL managers are going to use their free hit chips in Game Week 2. And if you're one of those managers, well, I've got a team for you. All right, I'm going to start by talking about the goalkeepers and the defenders. And I'm going to use the Fantasy Football Hub expected points in order to guide some of those decisions. I'm going to use the expected points and also a bit of my own logic, which I think is pretty much what most people do when making their decisions. They'll have a look at a model, have a look at some stats, some data, and then apply some of their own logic as to the players they want to pick. So what I'm interested in looking at particular is our top 3 or 4 defenders, really. You've got Gabriel, Saliba. Arsenal got Leeds at home. They kept a clean sheet against Man United. From an attacking point of view, Arsenal didn't look amazing in that game against Man United. But one thing you can definitely say is that they were solid defensively. Raya had a really good game in goal. And obviously their defence, they kept Man United pretty quiet when they actually got into their box. So quite like the look of the Arsenal defence. I think there's a good chance for clean sheet for them against Leeds. Leeds, they're good. But, they're one of the promoted teams. One of, I'd suggest, the 3 weakest teams in the Premier League. They hopefully keep a clean sheet, so I'm probably going to double up on the Arsenal defence. Crystal Palace have got Nottingham Forest at home. You can see there Munoz is the best Crystal Palace defender for expected points, and I don't think you can really deny that. He's great from an attacking point of view and may get some defcons as well, but it's just whether you want to spend the 5.5 million, right? Richards is there as well, and Gahey and Aït-Nouri, but I don't trust Man City, I've got to say, to keep a clean sheet against Tottenham, because I thought Tottenham were really impressive against Burnley. So what this has led me to pick Sanchez in goal. Now, I said Arsenal likely to keep a clean sheet, whatever. But having looked at how West Ham played against Sunderland, I'd fancy Chelsea's chances at keeping a clean sheet against West Ham. They were solid enough against Crystal Palace. Didn't look all that impressive going forwards, I'd say, Chelsea. But, they kept a clean sheet, albeit that as a disallowed goal for the free kick. They did keep a clean sheet, so back Sanchez in goal. Richards, Nottingham Forest at home. I could go for Munoz, but I can't quite afford him with this team, and you'll see why when I show you who I've picked. And then I've gone for a double up of Gabriel and Saliba. On my bench, players of note, I've just gone as cheap as possible, basically. I think if you're on your free hit, the focus should be on your 11, and you probably shouldn't need your bench. But if I do need to call upon my bench, well, Dubravka's got Sunderland, Estev's got Sunderland, and obviously Reynaldo, 4 million Sunderland defender, plays Burnley. So I think we're reasonably covered if we need a player to come in off the bench. But I suggest if you're using your free hit, you're going to be wanting to pick players that are going to play, right? And that's what my intention is. So Sanchez, Richards, Saliba and Gabriel make up my back 4. Said it already in previous videos, but all of the expected points data you see under the players here, and of course to help my decisions, is courtesy of Fantasy Football Hub. If you want to see that data for yourself, there's a link in the description below to get 50% off your sign-up fee for Fantasy Football Hub. And if you don't win your mini league, you'll get your money back. Fantasy Football Hub also offer an AI team rating tool, so catch the end of this video to see what this team gets for an AI rating. We're going to do the same thing for the midfield then, but as you'd probably expect, quite a lot of the midfielders here are expensive ones, and I can't fit them all in. But we got Saka and Salah, both joint top expected points players. Saka obviously with Leeds at home, 7.3. Salah, 7.3, Newcastle away. Palmer, 6.4 with West Ham away. Bruno, Fulham away, 5.8. Semenyo, 5.6 against Wolves. You got Odegaard there as well. So I've taken some of these players, but applied some of my own logic to it. I think if you're playing your free hit, you're doing so because you want to. I think you want to hedge against Salah, is what I'm saying. Basically, if you're free hitting in Game Week 2, right? Salah has Newcastle away, which on the face of it is a pretty tough fixture. And I'm suggesting if you're playing your free hit, you probably want to captain someone else. And also, not picking Salah for this 1 week allows you to really build a strong team of players with good fixtures. So I've gone for Semenyo. Obviously, he was really impressive against Liverpool, wasn't he? And he's got Wolves at home as his next fixture. Have just got absolutely thrashed basically by Man City. So I think Semenyo has a good chance of doing something in that game. I wasn't massively impressed by, well, I don't think anyone's impressed by Arsenal going forwards, at least against Man United. So whilst I've picked Saka in this team, doesn't necessarily mean he's going to do well against Leeds. I think for me, the interesting thing about Arsenal still is the question, who's going to take penalties? I think that's a really big question because in my mind, the best Arsenal asset is probably between Gyökeres and Saka, and the one of those two that takes penalties. I'm backing Saka for the time being. Bruno Fernandes, Man United looked really good against Arsenal from an attacking point of view. They were quite unlucky, I felt, not to score. Bruno Fernandes was, as integral as you'd ever expect in that team. He was 1 away from getting the DEFCON points, and I think he's going to get some goals and assists this season. You could pick Cunha, you could pick Mbeumo if you fancy them, but I still go for sort of the talisman that is Bruno Fernandes. Fulham away is a good fixture for Man United. I just can't think to do better for the kind of price. If you want to stick Wirtz in, someone else at 8.5 million, then go for it. But for me, I'm still confident in Bruno Fernandes. Reinders, I mean, I don't really think you'd expect anything else. I think at 5.6 million that he is now, he's just worth having in this team, right? He saves you a load of cash on other players, and he's probably better than a lot more of the more expensive players. I think this season we'll see him crop up with DEFCON. He obviously played really well against Wolves, getting the goal and the assist. I think he's going to start against Tottenham, isn't he? And then I went for Rodgers. He did blank against Newcastle, but having watched Brentford against Nottingham Forest, they're in a period of transition at the moment, I'd say. I don't think they're going to get relegated, but right now they need to make some big changes to their team. And Forest, right? They scored 1 goal, I believe, in 7 games during pre-season, and they scored 3 past Brentford at the weekend. So that suggests, I think, there's some goals potential for Aston Villa, and obviously, in particular, Rodgers. So yeah, midfield 5 of Semenyo, Saka, Bruno Fernandes, Reinders, and Rodgers. All right, up front, and it's obviously a similar sort of strategy to why I've gone for Rodgers. I went for Watkins. He obviously didn't really do anything. He had barely any touches, I think, against Newcastle. But again, Brentford, they shipped 3 goals to Nottingham Forest, who scored 1 goal all pre-season, which suggests they're probably a little bit ropey at the back. And then Haaland, I mean, I think there's, obviously, I'm going to captain Salah based on the Saka, based on the expected points. But I do think there's a genuine case to consider captaining Haaland against Tottenham. So it's up to you who you want to pick. But I think if you don't have Salah, the best bet is to have Saka and Haaland, right? Which is what I've got. You see, I've had Mark Gu on the bench there. I don't think you'll ever go Mark Gu deep on this free hit draft in its bench. Yeah, I just don't see why you wouldn't go for Haaland in this team. So in summary then, we get 66.5 expected points. The team value, I believe, it costs you 99.7 million. So everyone should be able to afford this team. Some players have gone up in price, namely Semenyo and Reinders after their first week. But I think it should still be affordable. Semenyo was 7 million at the start of the game, Raiders 5.5. If you got both of them from the off, this team should only cost you 99.5, I think. But yeah, I don't really see how you can build a stronger free hit draft than this. If you do have some more cash to play around with, you might be able to upgrade Richards for Lacroix, the other Crystal Palace defender, who I think, or one of the other Crystal Palace centre-backs, who I think last season did better for defensive contribution points. And maybe, if you had the cash again, you could upgrade Sanchez, but quite happy with him, to be honest, in goal. So a few chops and changes you could make if you had the cash. Yeah, I think this is a pretty solid free hit draft. And of course, I think the main debate is who do you go for as your captain? Saka and Haaland, I think, are the 2 standout options in this team. It's just a case of who do you pick out of those 2. I'll leave that up to you, really, I think. It's very close in my mind. I've given it to Saka, but if I was to use my personal, in my brain, expected points algorithm, I'd probably give it to Haaland, to be honest with you. Obviously, Salah's not in this team. Palmer's not in it either. I think you can definitely hedge against Palmer if you're free hitting. A majority of the game have him. I think if you're free hitting in Game Week 2, it's a chance to pick other players who people might not have. So yeah, this allows you to squeeze Haaland in. Just in general, by the way, if I was using my wild card, right? If I was using a wild card in Game Week 2 as well, I don't think this team would be too far off what my wildcard draft would look like. And in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload this video for the free hit team and a wildcard draft at exactly the same time on Tuesday evening. So people have a couple of teams to look through depending on their chip strategy. So yeah, let me know what you think of that draft in the comments. All right, well, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed that and found it useful. If you did, please leave us a like rating. And yeah, let me know in the comments what you think of that team. And if you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the Golden Goal channel. Should be just there on your screen. And yeah, that should be everything. Thank you very much for watching. Catch you in the next one.